Okay, borrowed this 2-inch pump, Harbor Freight pump from my buddy, and it's a, I don't know how old it is, at least a couple years old, and he's used it a few times. It's always worked fine, and but it sat for a year, and I borrowed it and got it home and hooked it up, couldn't start it. Checked the, I even sprayed starting fluid on the top of the carburetor, which is over there. And usually, if the jet's plugged, the starting fluid will start it for just a few seconds and then it'll die. And then, the jet's plugged, it's just not getting gas or it's got bad gas. So that didn't happen. Pulled the spark plug, and or I actually took the carburetor apart and sprayed the jet. And sure enough, I got carburetor cleaner right through the jet, sprayed right through, so it was fine. And then pulled the spark plug, and the spark plug was a little bit wet, and I was like, okay. So I pulled the exhaust, and the exhaust, looking down through the exhaust into the cylinder here, it had water in it. So I pulled the cylinder off, the head off, and it's actually got mud in here. So I'm not exactly sure if this is coming from the pump side or if some animal crawled in somehow from the exhaust and brought in dirt, like some dirt dauber or something. And then this is gas mixed with it. And it's just gas and mud or water and mud. I'm not sure, but I got to figure this out and see if we can get this thing running again. And now that we've got the mud out and I cleaned it out with brake cleaner, something's been sitting there for some time, the fluid level. So let's check the oil and see if any water's in the oil, and I'll drain the oil out and see what that looks like next. Okay, so I wasn't sure if the oil was contaminated or not, but it's contaminated. I'm going to tip the pan. You can see those little droplets running along the bottom there. So that has some water in it. It's dirty water. It's obviously rusty or has some dirt in it or something. So that was in the oil as well. And you can just kind of see what the water does here. Let me see if I can get this to focus. A little drip water there. And it looks like it's sitting on the top there. And we'll run it to the side. It's down on the bottom now. But it definitely, when I tip it that way and it goes that way, those other smaller droplets go that way as well. Not quite as fast, I guess, because they're smaller. Okay. So there was actually water on top of this exhaust valve. The one on the right there that's clean. I haven't looked on the top of this valve here.
Would have already like evaporated out.
Well, maybe a lot of it did. And that's why it was just kind of mud in the bottom of there. But like I told my buddy, the advantage of this Harbor Freight one is the engine's literally sometimes $100 on sale. Normally about 130 something, I think. Today it's on sale for 119. The whole engine, like all the way to the pump, carburetor, intake, exhaust, ignition, gas tank, everything. So even if this engine's bad, for $100 rather than spending another 250 on a new pump or on a whole new unit, we can just put an engine on it. And if this one grenades or eats itself, acts like it's not going to work right. So, yeah, who knows how long it'll last? Hopefully it'll go. Let's test it out. Okay, so we're going to see if we can't, this is cold. I think it's not idling, but it's running wide open. So we're just going to run it for a few seconds wide open, see if it'll idle. If it doesn't idle, there's another jet I think we have to clean. So let's make sure the ignition's on here. On, throttle's at about 1/3. Fuel is on, choke is on. Okay, so it won't idle. Okay, so we know it's running wide open with the choke off. That means the main jet's working great, just like a dirt bike. If it's running wide open, the main jet's, that's the main jet, right? If you close the throttle though, and you just crack the throttle, or you close the throttle completely on a dirt bike, just like this, that's the idle jet. So then you go mid throttle, that's the needle. Of course, there's no needle in this, but in any event, it's not idling. So most likely it's this little idle jet right here. We're gonna take that out and clean it. Okay, so where we're looking, of course, is on the left side of the carburetor, and get a little pointer here. This is the idle speed adjusting screw. It's a Phillips. Right, but we got to take that out because right below this is this piece right here, and this is actually the idle jet. So we're going to pry that out with a flat screwdriver and clean it up and see if that doesn't fix the idle problem. Okay guys, so I'm going to assume that it was idling fine before. So what I'm going to do to get this back in the same spot is we're going to count the turns here and see how many turns it takes to go to full close or fully clockwise. So this is going to be 1 turn, 4.5. So that's 4.5 turns out. So that's where we'll put it back because we got to take this thing all the way out. Now before we take this all, well, we can take this out first because it's just an adjustment screw. Okay, and that's what the throttle adjustment screw looks like. Now we didn't open anything up yet, so safety glasses on. Don't spray brake cleaner without safety glasses or carb cleaner. Okay, this should just pry up. Okay, good. Now it's got, looks like a little O-ring on the bottom there. It has 2 holes, one on each side here that goes all the way through. Hopefully that's coming out in the camera. And then the hole we're worried about that's probably plugged is that hole on the bottom right there. So through that little piece of metal, we'll either take a little piece of wire or try to spray some carb cleaner through it and get it cleaned out. So we just ripped apart a little piece of wire off of a wire brush. And we'll stick this up inside of here. Oh yeah. It got kind of hard there for a second, kind of resistant. Now we're just going to blast it through with a little bit of carbon choke cleaner. Hopefully this will go. Got your safety glasses on? Check. Okay, seems to be coming out in all the right places. So as we spray carb cleaner through that hole, it's coming out this hole and this hole on the sides. So that should be good. Let's spray it out with a little compressed air just to make double sure here. Before we put this back in, we're just going to look there and make sure it looks all clean around there so I don't accidentally catch a little piece of dirt and introduce it into the carb. Sorry, the camera angle's probably not real great, but all I did was take a flat screwdriver and stick it underneath this edge right here and pry it up. So now we're just going to take it and drop it back in. Okay, and then we'll just drop this back inside. Okay, I'm not sure the direction matters. But I did put it back in the same direction that I pulled it out in. So, but there's no orientation marks on it, you know, no grooves for it to only fit in one way. So I don't think it matters, but I put it back in the way I found it anyway. All right, let's fire it up and see if it idles. Okay, we're back outside. Ignition on, fuel on, choke on. I put throttle about 1/3. It's not warm, but I could open that. Once it's warm, I can open that. So idling perfectly now. That fixed it. Nice. So once it's warm, I can adjust the idle. I'm not going to adjust the idle right now though. The manual says don't run this for a prolonged time without being attached to water. So I don't know what prolonged is, you know, a few seconds, 10, 15 seconds. I don't know if that's going to hurt it. I hope not. But that's all we're trying to do here, just to make sure it's running good. Now again, you know, with the dirt in the top of the cylinder here, I don't know if that's going to affect this longevity. It probably will as far as the motor wear goes. But if it's still making enough compression to turn the pump and still spraying water, that's all it's got to do. So, you know, we got to keep it clean, keep clean gas in it, keep clean oil in it. I'll probably change the oil here too after I run it for a few times. Just go ahead and change the oil, get whatever leftover contaminants are in there out, and then put some fresh oil in it. And hopefully this baby will be good to go for a while.